It's champagne hangout time. Hi, everyone. Hi, Viv.
Hello, Charlinda. How's things in South Africa today?
It's beautiful. It really is. We're having such lovely weather, and it's almost time to get swimming again. So, how awesome is that?
Wow. How's that for prosperity?
Right? Ooh, wow. Yes, that sounds quite yummy. Thank you so much for joining me on the Champagne Hangout. And yes, our topic tonight is prosperity consciousness. And I'm so curious to know what that is for you, because if I have to think of all the traveling that you do, there's something that you are doing that you're getting right that some of us might not be getting right or might not have tapped into yet. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation this evening.
Well, this is when I came across prosperity consciousness. So, to begin with, it's a book that was written by Stephen Chittisa Bowman. And I was probably as soon as I heard the title, there was something like champagne bubbles. There was something in me that just, yes, this is what I've been looking for. This is something that I knew was possible. And I got my hands on one of the very first books. And when I read the book, I'm like, oh my God, this has to get out to the world. This is so simple. It's so powerful and so dynamic that why is this stuff not taught in schools? Why don't parents have this information to pass on to their children? It just seems crazy to not have children educated as to how to create wealth and prosperity and develop a prosperity mindset, for want of a better description. So, yeah.
So what is prosperity consciousness?
So, prosperity consciousness is a way of being. It's where you are conscious of any limitation. It's where you're aware of any self-talk or hearing what comes out of your mouth that creates any lack or scarcity, or thinking that you can't have something, or that the choice isn't available to you. So it's taking any lack, scarcity, poverty, can't have, and being aware of that, not making it wrong, but how can I change this into a prosperous point of view? And for me, prosperity is having possibilities, knowing that you have choices, knowing that you've got the ability to create something, even if you don't have the money right here, right now. What else is possible for the future if you change your point of view about, how often do you hear people say, I can't afford it? This is one of the most common things I hear. And when we constantly repeat that, I can't afford it, or I don't have the money, we allow money to dictate the choices, rather than, what if you choose it now to be able to travel the world, or buy that new car, or treat yourself to a facial once a month, or whatever it is that you'd like. But it's the choice that is actually creating the prosperity to show up in the future.
So it's rather interesting, because it's as if we're setting ourselves up to first have the money and then we can have the living, where what you're talking about now is pretty much choose.
Yes.
And then what then?
Yeah, and this was such a head spinner for me, because I'd been brought up in a very linear, if you don't have the money, you can't have it. So then, how we're taught, how I was taught, was work hard, save everything, go without, sacrifice, and then eventually you can have what you desire. And I did that, but I'm like, this just doesn't feel right to me. It feels like there's got to be another way to do this. And like I say, when I discovered this book, The Prosperity Consciousness, I'm like, bingo, this is what I knew was possible as a child. Forget my upbringing and how they did it back in that generation. But so you choose it first. So say you do want a new car. You make the choice. I'm having that car. I don't know when and I don't know how, but I'm having that car. You choose first, and then you be the energy of that possibility. You start looking at the cars, you start seeing them everywhere, you get brochures, you might even be, courageous enough to go for a test drive in the car, even if you haven't got the money. Be the energy of having that as part of your life and your reality. Then you do what's required. You work, you save your money, you do, your 10% or whatever it is, and then you have it. So how we can create is be, do, have, not the do, and then you might, if you're lucky, have it.
Hmm. Okay, so it's just so many things that have opened up, because if I look at people that would refer to like The Secret as an example, where they'll have something like a specific car in mind. And if you look at the other part of not The Secret, I don't know what else to call it, where people say, well, don't have something specific in mind, because if you visualize a Mercedes Benz as an example, and the universe actually is looking to deliver a Porsche to you, then you can't receive the Porsche because you set on the Mercedes Benz. So can you maybe just give a little bit more clarity for people that might go, hey, wait a minute, that's a little bit confusing. Do I now focus on the Merc or don't I?
Yeah, great question. And yes, ask for the Merc. So in that situation, great example, because a few years ago I wanted to get a gold four-wheel drive. Yeah, I wanted to get a gold Toyota Land Cruiser four-wheel drive. It had to be gold. For some reason, it had to be gold. And I looked and looked and looked, and I couldn't find one. I scoured the internet. Like usually when I ask for something, it turns up quite easily. I was on websites, I was talking to dealers, I was really putting a lot of energy into finding this car, and it just wasn't happening. And then one day a friend of mine turned up in a gold Nissan, and I looked at it, and I'd kind of made a point of view of I don't want a gold Nissan because I want a gold Toyota. And he said, take it for a drive. And he just gave me the keys, and I took it for a drive, and I went, right, get the dog to jump in the back. Is there enough room for her? Because that was important for me to have enough room for the dog to be comfortable. Priorities. And I went for a drive and went, oh my God, I love this car. I kid you not, as true as I'm sitting here, I came home, went on the internet. First thing I found was a gold Nissan. Went and bought it. They gave me. And so when I asked for the gold Toyota, it wasn't showing up because it was kind of like a very limited, I was leaving this much room for the universe to bring in what I was asking for. But when I let go of that point of view, it's like, well, I'd love to have a gold Toyota, and what else is possible that I haven't considered? When you employ the universe, there's a very high chance it's going to create something greater than you can imagine once you get your attachment out of the way, which this was a beautiful example for me. So literally a week later, I had my gold Nissan four-wheel drive. So, so if you're asking for a Mercedes, it's like, well, what would it take for a Mercedes to show up, or something greater?
All right. So that's once again, as you referred to in the beginning, that possibilities of what prosperity is for you. So
yes.
Ask for, and, what if there's something greater?
Yeah. And what would it take for something greater than I can imagine to show up today? So one of my favorite access questions is, what are the infinite possibilities that today can turn out far greater than I can imagine? Or if I'm going to a meeting, what are the, like coming on this hangout with you, it's like, well, what are the infinite possibilities this hangout can turn out far greater than I can imagine? So I'm always cultivating and nourishing that prosperity mindset, that whoever I connect with and whatever I put energy into can become something greater. And that's not a linear, controlled outcome. It's a possibility that is open-ended.
I really would like for us to delve more into, what you just mentioned, not the linear way of creating or having money. And I think before we get there, if we can maybe just look at prosperity, almost conjures up, as you mentioned as well, the word having. You're having it already. It's prosperity, have. And yet there's a lot of people that function in terms of money from a space of need or obligation or supplication even. So what is required for people to move from that to step into prosperity?
Yeah. So you mentioned a really crucial word here amongst this. Whatever feeds that lack or obligation or poverty or scarcity is need. So if you've ever had somebody in your life that's really needy, what do we do?
Yes. Don't really want to spend a lot of time with them.
Yeah, we kind of go, oh, let's just hide behind the cornflake boxes in the supermarket. They can't see me. We avoid that. We kind of cringe. We kind of disappear, and it's not an invitational energy. And so everything is energy. Money is energy. Yeah. So if you're coming from a place of need and you're getting really needy and desperate, and this is where, you know, when I said earlier, it was a bit of a head twister for me to start with, because I had functioned my entire life from not having enough, from never having enough, from not barely making ends meet, living week to week, dreaming of the lifestyle that I'm living now, but never truly believing that it could be possible, because I couldn't see the money in my hand at the end of the week, let alone the bank balance.
Mm.
So what I realized was that sense of need and desperation sends out that message of neediness, which is not an invitational energy. But when I kind of go, you know what would it take for money to show up in my life? What would it take for me to earn money while I sleep? What would it take for money to show up in a multitude of ways through avenues I haven't even considered? All of a sudden, all the other ways that money wanted to come to me, because that was a curiosity and a bit of a wonderment, playful, flirtatious energy. You know, if I'm going, hey, Charlinda, hey, let's go out for a glass of champagne. You know, I've got this beautiful new champagne that I'd like to try, and it's a gorgeous afternoon. Would you like to come round? What would you say?
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So it's the energy that either facilitates stuff showing up for you really easily, or if we're functioning from need or lack, we're actually pushing it away. We're repelling it, because that energy of need is actually a repelling energy. It's not an energy that invites something greater to show up. And yet what we tend to do is go to need and desperation. The smaller our bank account gets, we get a bit panicky and a bit frantic about, oh my God, I've got to get money. And we get into this getting money, which kind of I always get these words mixed up, perpetuates that cycle of survival, the survival of scarcity. We're just living week to week rather than, how do I get out of this? We don't need to have the money to get out of it. What if we could change our point of view? And that's actually what's cultivating more money showing up. And it changes that energy of repelling that we don't even realize we're doing a lot of time.
So it seems like if we are willing to maybe not necessarily sit down and write down our points of views about money, but just become more aware of it, that is a starting point for changing, you know, what is showing up.
Yeah. So what would be a good example? Ask me that differently. There's an energy there that we can access. Just, can you reword that for me?
All right. Yeah. So would writing down the points of views you have about money be a starting point for changing?
Yes, thank you. Just something I missed there. Absolutely. And it's not to make it wrong or judge it. So, you know, how would you be different if you had all the money you desired? If you had all the money for you right now, if you had all the money that you truly desire, would you be a different person?
Would I be a different person?
Yeah.
No.
You'd still be Charlinda?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Would you have, so for me, when I looked at it, it's like, so I actually be a different person if I had money, because sometimes we stop money coming in because we've judged people who have money. And we don't want to be that. So it's like, okay, so if I had money, I'd be different. No. So when it comes to writing something down, a really simple exercise, okay, so what does being rich mean to me? And you'll probably have a whole mixture of things. Rich means I'm arrogant. Rich means I'm better than other people. Rich means I am somebody. Rich means I'm successful. Rich means I'm an asshole. Rich means I'm, you know, we're going to have such a conflict with what being rich is. Or if you had the house and the car and the lifestyle and the money in the bank and the choices, what would that mean to me? So a really simple one to start with would be, what does money mean to me? If I was rich, what would that mean to me? So we're starting to agitate any points of view that we've taken on from other people, our parents, society, about what it is to have wealth, what it is to be prosperous, what it is to have a beautiful lifestyle and have the choices that you'd like to have, the car, the house, the jewelry, the holidays, whatever it is for you. So yes, writing down points starts to get you clear on that point actually is prosperous. That actually creates, and that point totally is what I want to have. If I think rich people are arrogant or they treat people poorly, I don't want to be that. So then I start in conflict between, I want to be rich, I don't want to be like rich people. So if you had money, would Charlinda be a different person? No.
No.
Would you have a bigger life?
Yes.
Would you have more possibilities? Would you be able to choose things? Yeah. And look at the smile that's putting on your face. Look at the energy and the, oh yeah, let's party. And that's the energy that is prosperity. When you get creative with, wow, yeah. And that's the energy that you can be and then do what's required to have whatever it is that you're asking for.
So you're also talking about employing the universe. And I'm curious, what does that look like for you as an example in not just creating a prosperity mindset, but also having the prosperity lifestyle?
Yes, prosperous lifestyle. And so for me, prosperity isn't just about things. Prosperity is being able to sit in a beautiful park and really enjoy the sound of the birds and receive the smell of the flowers and the sun on your skin. So for me, that's prosperity. That's building wealth because I'm grateful for what I have around me. I could be in the middle of a city and be grateful for the buses and the people and everything else. So that prosperity and employing the universe is where you start to acknowledge the abundance that the universe is. So and a good example is, okay, so let's say we have an area of land and we strip that land and we put concrete down. And if we don't build anything on that concrete, within 6 weeks to 6 months, the weeds will start growing up through the concrete. Nature will find a way, and in 2-3 years, if that concrete's not built on or had anything done to it, you won't be able to see the concrete anymore. So there's an abundance in nature, there's an abundance in the universe that will always create more. So how many grains of sand are on a beach? If you dredge that beach and take, sand to build something, the universe just makes more sand. There's always an abundance. The universe is constantly seeking to become more. The planet is seeking to become more. The plants and the trees and the animals are seeking to become more. So there's a prosperity there. So when I ask the universe to help me, the universe doesn't know lack. The birds don't go, I'm not singing today because I'm having a bad feather day. They don't function from lack.
I just love that you said that the universe is constantly, now the words are just escaped me because I'm into the energy of it. It's constantly creating more or looking to be more. How beautiful is that?
Yeah.
And how unkind of us if we're not willing to, co-create that.
Yeah. I just want to share a little story because I love this story. It's like, imagine in the sky there's a massive warehouse with Charlinda's name on it above the doors, and you're on planet Earth and you're going, I'd love a Mercedes or I'd love a holiday or whatever it is that you're asking for. And it's like these little invisible fairies grab hold of that thought and they flap their wings crazily and they go up to the warehouse in the sky. And in the meantime, they've just received the email in the office and all the fairies there going, yes, from her warehouse. And in this warehouse is everything that you could ever possibly desire in your life. So they're all excited. They get it. They get the forklift out and they bring out the Mercedes and they wrap it up and then they start bringing it down through the ethers. The doors open and they come down through the clouds and down through the... And meanwhile, on the planet, we're looking at Mercedes and we're dreaming and we're, playing with the idea of having a Mercedes. And then you get a bill or something, you have a bad headache. It's like, well, I'm never going to get a Mercedes, or I can't afford it, and who am I kidding? Or somebody comes in and says you can't have it, and like it's just about to land, fairy just slowing down the flapping of their wings to provide this Mercedes for you. And with that one thought, they hear a radio message going, sorry guys, she's changed her mind, the order's cancelled, bring it back. And they're all, you know, their little wings are flying slowly back up, and they've got a face and then it gets off again. And I love that analogy, because with that one thought, that one perspective of lack, or I can't afford it, or where's the money coming from, we accidentally interrupt and slow down and eventually stop is that we desire showing up. And that's how powerful we can be, whether we have prosperity or scarcity. It's up to us what we choose.
So what are some of the steps or tools that we can take to not stop that creation, not be in our own way?
Yeah. So asking the question, what would it take for me to have a Mercedes? What would it take for me to travel to, you know, the Caribbean and go diving? Whatever it is that you desire, what would it take to create greater consciousness on the planet? What would it take for people to become more aware they're treating each other? Whatever your thing is, whatever your desire is, the question is the thing that opens the door. And you catch a negative thought, anything that is lack or contraction or limitation, don't judge it, don't make it right or wrong, and just go, well, okay, interesting point of view, and then turn it into a question. So if you're going, I can't afford, I would love that, whatever it is, I would love that, but you see the price tag, and immediately the price tag dictates whether you will allow yourself to have it or not, rather than looking going, I absolutely love that. What would it take for one of those to show up in my reality?
Wow.
You're aware I can't afford it. I don't have the money right. I don't have the money right now. And that's being real. It's like, okay, well, I love this. It's $1,000 or whatever it is, rand or whatever. And you kind of go, okay, I'd love that. I don't have the money right now. You're acknowledging where you're at. You're making it a limitation. It's like, right, and what would it take for me to be able to have one of those?
Once again, that possibility. It's almost like supersizing your previous order.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just catching where the limitation. And another question that I just love is, what will it take for me to be greater than any limitation, any judgment, and any point of view?
Wow.
That's one I absolutely, and that's one I give to clients. I give that anybody that's functioning from, I'll go shopping with my sister and she'll look at a beautiful coat and go, oh, no, I don't have the money. And I'll go, well, will it take to be greater than that? In a really kind way, but it's like I'm opening the door for the possibility. You don't have to shut it on your own fingers. You look at it, you want it, and then you immediately stop yourself because you've come to a conclusion that the price tag is greater than you're willing to pay for it. Well, what would it take for something greater than this to show up? You could go to a garage sale in a week's time, or you could go to a friend's house and she's clearing the cupboard out, and there it is. There's one similar, and you don't have to pay anything for
it. Wow, that's just so juicy. I mean, my whole body's tingling all over with what possibilities.
Cheers.
I forgot. There we go. Cheers. Thank you so much. So what else is prosperity consciousness for you?
So it's always looking, instead of putting your energy into problems and trying to fix problems, it's literally getting a problem and turning it 180 degrees. You're looking at a problem. Say you've got a bill to pay and the money's not there. Instead of going into trying to fix the problem and getting money and getting stressed and anxious and worrying about it, okay, so it's, I don't know, 3,000 rand that you need. Okay, what's it going to take for more money than I need to actually pay this? You get hold of the problem, and instead of going into the problem, which is kind of like, for me, I kind of look at that as a black hole. It doesn't create anything. It doesn't make you feel powerful. It makes you feel less than. It makes you feel inferior. It makes you feel like crap, basically. Because you're going into the judgment of you not having the money to pay that, rather than, okay, what's it going to take for more money than I need for this to show up? You go straight into the possibility. You flex your muscle of always playing with the question and coming from a place of possibility, not, like I said, perpetrating the lack.
It's almost in the perpetration of the lack that there's a non-trusting of the universe to deliver, as if the universe has to deliver or is not delivering already.
Yeah, and thank you, because it never looks like you think it's going to. I accidentally somehow managed to miss a whole tax year. I changed accountants and somewhere I missed an entire tax year. So the following year I got a bit of a rude reminder and my most recent tax request. And of course I went into absolute panic going, oh my God, that's 2 years tax. Anyway, when it eventually worked out, it was around $6,000. And I'm like, where on earth am I going to create $6,000 from? I didn't have $600, let alone $6,000. And I went, okay, universe, back me up here. How am I going to create this money? What can I create right now that will allow this money to show up with ease? About 2 weeks later, somebody asked me to do a workshop. Again, this is true as I'm sitting here. I earned $5,998 at that workshop.
Awesome.
Which brings me to another really good point. Sometimes if we're still functioning from a bit of lack, what we ask for, it will almost, the amount that you require will almost turn up to the absolute cent and dollar. But if you ask for something greater, or what will it take for more to show up, you're going to start creating a surplus. You're going to start having money. You're going to start creating more than you actually, quote unquote, need. And that's where you start to create the space to allow more to show up in ways that you can't ever imagine. And that's the magic. That's the magic of the prosperity.
Right. And that ties so nicely into what I mentioned earlier, is creating from non-linear ways, or receiving non-linearly. Sure, I'm not being able to speak.
Yeah. More champagne.
I need more. Can you please just give more information about that? And, how do we play with that?
Yeah, functioning in a non-linear way.
Yes.
Yeah, so again, it's like if you have a choice in front of you and your brain immediately goes to your bank account and your brain goes, no, I can't afford this, sign up for it anyway. Take the steps. So for me in the early days, there were all these amazing classes, like coming to South Africa. Doing a safari in South Africa was one of my lifelong dreams. And when the 7-day event came up in South Africa, I'm like, okay, I'm having this. Looked at the bank account. The money's not there to pay for the airfare and class. Hey, what's it going to take for that to show up without me taking it from somewhere else? I have an account that, how I've set it up for me, I have money in different accounts that are used for like my 10% account, for investments, for jewelry, and then I have like my living account, if you like. And if the money isn't in there, I make the demand of me to create more money in that account rather than borrowing and putting borrowing from other accounts. That's just what I've realized works for me. So that's a non-linear way, because most of us would go, I'll go and get a credit card. I'll put myself into debt. I'll rob Peter to pay Paul. So rather than looking at, okay, I would really love to be at this 7-day, wow. And when I looked at it, I went, the cost of paying to go on a safari is $5,000. The cost of going to this class is $5,000, and I get to go on safaris for, what was it? I don't know, a couple of $100,000 or something. It was incredibly affordable. So the other way that I create from a non-linear point of view is asking the question of, what will it take for me to never have enough money, but always too much to spend?
Yeah,
that flies anywhere you're trying to make sense of it, because our mind goes to the linear way is, I need $6,000. So you will create the $6,000. But if you live from this place of, okay, so what would it take for me to never have enough money, but always too much to spend? Get the energy of how much money you could spend if money wasn't the issue. Woohoo, party time.
Right. I'm already on a cruise. More champagne.
Yeah.
And
yeah. And so living from this hedonistic place, or hedonistic, however people say it, being a hedonist is considered a bad thing. But when you're a hedonist, you want the best of life. You want the cream of the crop. You want the best champagne. You want to go on the nicest cruise. You don't sell yourself short on settling for less. Right. You know what you want. You don't ever settle for less. You don't cut corners. You don't think, oh, well, I want to go on the cruise, but I'll have an inside cabin without a window because it's cheaper. Yes. No, I'm going on a cruise and I'm having a balcony and I'm being on the top deck, or whatever it is what is it that you would truly desire that if you didn't limit it would turn up in a heartbeat?
Right. And, it's so interesting because it's almost as if it starts with the smaller actions as well. Using an example of when you get up in the morning and put on clothes, it's easy for me when I'm at home to just put on some slacks, but putting on slacks might not necessarily contribute to me having the hedonistic lifestyle. Not that there's wrong or right in it, but we've kind of scaled on our lives.
Yes. Yeah. And so thank you, because that brings me back to being the energy. I mean, you can be the energy and prosperity and riches and money, but you can still dress casually. It's not, so there's a difference between trying to prove that you have, so there's a difference between riches and wealth. Riches is often where people try to prove that they have money. They're not being it. There's like a vibrational disharmony there. There's like a discord. It's like the pretense of a facade. They're not being it. They're not vibrationally compatible with that. So, when people come into money, whether it's through inheritance or they win money or a lottery or something, because their prosperity consciousness isn't developed, they often find themselves back in the same situation that they were in before they had their money, because they haven't changed how they were being before. Mm-hmm. That makes sense?
It does. Yeah, it's almost as if there's also an outside. You have your wealth, so to speak, outside of you, and not you. There's a separation, it seems like, if I have to put it in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when I said earlier about be, do, have, you be the energy of going on the cruise and drinking champagne and having your balcony. Right now, you can tap into that energy of watching a beautiful sunset and you're sailing through the Caribbean or wherever you are with your feet up on the rail, hearing the water going past and the sound of the engine, drinking your champagne. Mm-hmm. Immediately you be that, you sense it, your cells vibrate that, oh yeah, I can totally get that. Compatible with what you're asking for. Because often things don't turn up for us because we're not actually compatible with what we're asking for. So if you've lived on the streets your whole life and then you want to go and live in a penthouse suite in the middle of New York, there's a vibrational incongruency there. So there has to be a change of yourself. There has to be a change of what you're willing to be and receive to invite that to become your reality.
So this is quite interesting, because as you were talking, I was feeling it in my body in terms of the sensations and the, being on the cruise. And then also there's an element of imagination. Isn't that somewhere where we trip ourselves up, where we imagine or daydream about a certain, having a certain something, and because there's no separation, our brain's experiencing it, it might not show up.
So, great. Two things with that is we can't be vested in the outcome. We can't be attached to what it is that we're asking for, because often our need of it showing up will actually push it away. When we get really fixated on something, it's not an invitational energy. But if you're being the energy, and get what you're saying, it's kind of like, well, the two blend together. You're imagining being on the boat, you're imagining, but the difference with you is not just in your head, your being perceives that energy. Your body perceives it. You're vibrating, if you like, at that resonance. You're on the boat, you're feeling it with every sense in your body.
Yes.
So for me, imagination is more It's constructed in the head, but we're not actually really believing that we could have it. It's still a fantasy. We're still putting a dream that's which we don't truly perceive that can become a reality for us.
It's almost as if it stays like boxed. The energy just stays like stuck in little boxes.
Yes. Yeah. And going back to something that you were saying earlier about The Secret, some of that's good, some of it works. I used to do, before the tour, I discovered the tours of access or prosperity consciousness. I used to employ, without even realizing I was doing The Secret. This is before The Secret was even created. But I always felt that it was very limited. It was always very, it was small. What I was creating was small, and yet inside I knew there was something far greater. I wanted to travel. I always knew I wanted to travel in luxury and have a wealthy lifestyle, and not from proving or throwing money around. It was just, no, this is the luxury and the comfort and the decadence that I would like to live my life as. And when something you mentioned earlier, when you're willing to ask for something greater, the universe celebrates. The universe got everything that it wishes for us. It wishes for us to be happy. It wishes for us to have what we desire. But when we have a point of view or a conflictual point of, right, well, wealthy people are arrogant, but I'd like to be wealthy or rich or whatever, hand out those messages, it constantly keeps what we truly desire at bay. It doesn't allow it to truly actualize and allow to contribute to your life. And the other thing is, a lot of people do the stop-start thing. They get the Mercedes and then they stop creating. They stop asking for anything else, rather than, if you do these within a very short time, you'd be asking for something else. You'd be asking for, a round the world trip, or you'd be asking you would constantly be asking for something more to show up. You wouldn't just go, right, I'm set now, I've got Mercedes, I'll sit back and, just veg for the rest of my life.
Right. Before
too long, your creative desire would be reaching and yearning for something else, which actually allows the universe to contribute more. So the desire to consume of conflict for people, because in this reality, consumption is considered a wrongness. Consumption can tend to be from a place of greed. People associate food they're consuming, or they're consuming too much food or alcohol. But in the true sense, the art of consumption is creating more space for the universe to contribute to you what you truly desire. Because if you're happy, that contributes to so many people. It contributes to the planet.
Happy people. I can just see
happy
it.
People.
Happy people.
Happy people.
Right.
And that brings in the receiving.
Yes.
So this is another level of prosperity. The willingness to actually truly receive is how. So that gold Nissan I was telling you about earlier, for the first 3 or 4 days, it was like this massive anticlimax. And I'm like, why? This is a weird sensation. What is this? It was like I'd asked and I'd created, and it turned up with such ease that when I had it, it was almost like I didn't know how to receive it, because that was a big step for me to actually have something I truly desire. It was probably the turning point in my life where prosperity really started to become my reality. From driving around in little run cars, which was all my dad's point of view. You waste money on cars and they're petrol guzzlers and it costs you a fortune for tyres, and all his points. It's like, no, I would like to have a gold four-wheel drive that I can go up the beach in, or I can go into the mountains with and explore the rest of the world. There was this anticlimax, and what I came to was, I'm not actually receiving that I've created this. I'm not receiving these of how it showed up. I'm not receiving the contribution that this dream, if you like, is now my reality. It's no longer a dream. I've actually created it. It's effortless. It was literally within a week I had that car. So to receive what it is, because if you're raising the bar and asking for something greater, part of that is flexing your muscle to receive something greater going up.
All
And
right.
this is where I see people that win money, they don't know about receiving. For them, most people, to have money is to spend it. It's not about having. It's about that money in the bank that you can look at it every month and go, wow, I've got money. I'm no longer living on the bed. Wow, I can look at my bank account and I've got 30 grand in there, 50 grand in there, grand, 10 grand, 1,000, for some people. So part of the contribution so actually does contribute to our life. It doesn't wish to create us angst and pain and stress. It wishes to contribute to our life. But what could see the gift and the contribution that money truly desires to be to you and your. Hello.
Hi, I lost you for a moment. Okay, we're still recording.
That's all right. Yeah. That's good. So yeah, most people earn money or create money to spend or to buy things or to pay things. They don't have a muscle that allows them to have money and have wealth as contribution. Having the car for me it took me, to be totally honest, it took me about 3 or 4 weeks to really receive that this car was mine, that I'd created it. And now when stuff turns up, I'm like, whoa, how cool am I? What an amazing creator I am. I've just created being invited to this amazing hospital at the weekend that's, the guest. I'm like, wow. I acknowledge me for creating it. So this is something else that I wanted to do. Say was, in the earlier days, I would always thank the universe for creating something. I would never acknowledge me, ever. Because I didn't believe I had anything to do with it. I always total thank you, yes, thank you so much. And then I heard this little voice one day that said, how about thanking you, Viv? You've actually co-created this. You had the awareness to ask for this. You desired it. And the energy of desire allows things to show up a lot more quickly and fluidly and effortlessly. When you desire something, it's a very invitational energy rather than need. And yet we're taught that to desire something is wrong. Right. The art, it's wrong to desire. Crazy. So what if desiring is actually one of your greatest creative juices? What if that's one of your greatest creative fertilizers, to desire, to really desire something? So, and then would you be willing to receive stuff showing up really easily?
Wow. So what I'm wondering about, because we're almost getting to the end of the Champagne Hangout, is if we look at the energy of desire and prosperity consciousness, I'm curious as to how we can almost set up our future now.
Brilliant. Great question. So this is another key part of the non-linear prosperity. When we live week to week, when we're living in scarcity or not having enough, and it doesn't know whether you've got $10 in the bank or 10,000 in the bank, it's not actually dependent on the amount of money you have. I've met people with millions that still do lack and scarcity. So it's actually not to do with the amount of money you've got. It's the way we think about things. Sorry, Charlinda, what was your question? How do we create the future? When you desire to go on a cruise, for instance, that's actually you sensing something that you would like to have as a contribution to your life. It might happen in 6 months, it might happen in a year, it might happen in 5 years, but what that desire is doing is energetically, you're sowing seeds without doing it logically and linearly. You're doing it from this place of curiosity and wonderment, and you're flirting with the universe, you're flirting with the possibilities, you're desiring to have something contribute to you in your life. And so it's almost like we accidentally create our future, we desire something. We're creating the future by, I'm in the UK at the moment, and I'm like, what would it take for me to actually buy a property here that I can come and live in the 6 months that I come here? What would it take for me to also still have my Australia? Now I find myself looking at cars. I've just got a little cheap runaround car at the moment, and I keep looking at the Mini Coopers, like, a really fun car for me to have. So now I'm looking at Mini Coopers and the sports edition with the roof that goes down, you know. And that desire, things start talking to you. You start noticing things that you wouldn't have noticed before when you were functioning from lack. That's creating your future. You're creating greater possibilities by looking at what else would you like to have in your life? What else would you desire? If money wasn't the issue, what would you desire if you totally allowed yourself to be uninhibited with what you desire? What car would you like to drive? Where would you like to live? Where would you go on holiday? What would you like to invest your money in? What hobbies would you take up? What would you do for your family and friends, you know? Yeah, and the other thing is looking at other people, something you desire. So I'd see people in beautiful cars like Jaguars, Maseratis, or luxury cars and go, good on you, mate. You know, good on you for having that car, and they're enjoying it. And I'm going, what would it take for me to have one of those? What would it take for me to have a Jaguar in the future? I'm generous with being happy, genuinely happy for people that have something that I desire, rather than, oh, they're rich and they've got some, you know, because that's what some people do. They judge what other people have, even though they secretly would like to have it themselves. And that destroys their future. That destroys what they're capable of creating. Because generosity is also part of prosperity. Being generous with you're happy for somebody else to have something that maybe you don't have. You're happy for them, for their success. That's also prosperity.
Wow. I don't want
How does it get any better?
You. It's in my back pocket. So what?
That to me.
So one last question I have about the prosperity consciousness for all the people that might be watching and listening that have businesses, wondering how they incorporate prosperity consciousness and co-create with their business.
Yes. So great question, and simple. What would it take my business to get greater than I can imagine? The question, being aware of anywhere that you or anybody is back.
Yes. Oh, goodness.
So what will it take to be greater? Can you still hear me?
I can.
Yeah? Yeah. So what will it take for me to be greater? If you're the, if you're the boss, the CEO, the manager, what will it take for me to be greater than any of the staff's limitations, judgments, and points of view? And be aware of anybody that's working with you or for you that does function from lack, that doesn't function from this space of possibility. And maybe give them some extra coaching, or get the Prosperity Consciousness book. It's for sale on Amazon. Phenomenal book, Prosperity Consciousness by Steve and Chitissa Bowman. Brilliant book. If you have a business, I cannot recommend this book enough. Yeah,
I'm going to show. I actually have it on my Kindle, so you can't really see it. There we go. Prosperity Consciousness.
Leading yourself to money, with awareness, with conscious awareness.
Yes. Beautiful.
Unconsciousness is a form of prosperity. Consciousness, you realize that it's the unconscious points of view, it's the stuff we've taken on that's stopping your business from expanding and growing. It's stopping you from having the profit. It's stopping you from having. I worked with an accountant this morning who employs 15 staff, and he's finally at the stage where he's able to step out of the office more. He's starting to have more time with his family. For him, that's true prosperity. That he has the choice. He can take the morning off to go and watch his son compete. He can be there for his other son's rugby game. Or for him, that's true prosperity. To be able to delegate, to trust the staff that he's employed, that they'll do a better job than him. Employ people who do a better job than him. That's another thing. Let people that are working for you step up and shine and contribute to your business. Yeah.
Awesome. Yay.
What else is
Oh,
possible?
what else is? Thank you so much. Cheers to opening up so many different possibilities for all of us now and in the future. It's such a great pleasure. Thank you so much, for being on the show.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome, Shalinda. Here's to prosperity.
Yes, here's to prosperity for now and future.
Well, for the future, absolutely. How does it get better? Cheers.
That's it. Thank you so much, and I look forward to speaking to you soon again. And everyone watching, cheers. Have a great day wherever you are.
Cheers. Ching ching.
Bye-bye.
Bye.